Now, these are devastating and truly horrific allegations.
She was the last person to walk out of the Queen's room that night. The shocking statement did not come from the press or palace gossip, but from a former royal servant who had served the monarchy for many years. After a long silence, he sought out Charles with a story he said he could no longer keep to himself. According to him, just 24 hours before Queen Elizabeth's death at Balmoral, he had seen Camilla enter Her Majesty's private room. When she left, her face was tense and filled with anger, as though she had just finished a major argument. But when Charles confronted her directly, Camilla immediately denied it. Her team quickly produced a schedule and witnesses proving she was elsewhere in the residence that evening. The story seemed to end there until, a few days later, a diary purportedly belonging to the Queen herself unexpectedly appeared at Charles's office. In those final entries, there was mention of a meeting that left the Queen deeply distressed. So what really happened during that last night at Balmoral? A mistaken memory or a secret that has never been spoken? The autumn of 2022 left a profound wound in King Charles III's heart. Queen Elizabeth II passed away. No one could have imagined that 4 years later, an accusation would turn everything upside down. On the morning of February 15th, while Charles was reviewing his schedule in his private office at Clarence House, his secretary knocked. "Your Majesty, Mr. Harold Jenkins, a former servant, requests a private audience. He says it is very important." Charles recognized the name, a loyal, quiet man who had retired more than 10 years earlier. He nodded. "Show him in." Jenkins entered, white-haired, clutching an old wool cap, his posture weary yet resolute. He did not beat around the bush. "I have come because my conscience will no longer allow me to remain silent. There is something I have kept hidden for 4 years." Charles set down his pen and looked straight into the man's eyes. "Go on." Jenkins took a deep breath. "The night before the Queen passed, at Balmoral, I was on the night shift in the second-floor corridor, near her room. Around 10 o'clock, I saw Queen Camilla enter alone. No bodyguard, no secretary. I was standing 10 meters from the door and recognized her clearly from her walk and that light gray wool coat." Charles stiffened. "Are you certain? The corridor lighting is very dim." "Certain," Jenkins insisted. "She stayed inside for 25 to 30 minutes. When she came out, her expression had completely changed. Lips pressed tight, hands clenched so hard her knuckles turned white. She walked past me without looking, but the atmosphere was heavy, as though a fierce argument had just taken place." Charles fell silent. The image of his frail mother lying in her sickbed flashed vividly before him. He asked hoarsely, "Did you hear anything?" "No, the door was tightly closed, but the Queen was very tired at that point. She did not want to see anyone late at night unless it was truly urgent. The next morning, she deteriorated rapidly. The doctor arrived at 6, and then everything happened so quickly." Charles stood and walked to the window, gazing at the wilted garden. "Why wait until now?" "I was afraid," Jenkins admitted. "Afraid of disrupting the royal family. Afraid of being dismissed as a fabricator. But the older I get, the less I can sleep. Every time I see an image of the Queen, I think, if I stay silent, am I betraying her?" The air grew thick. Charles turned back, his eyes a mixture of gratitude, confusion, and pain. "Do you have any proof? Notes or other witnesses?" Jenkins shook his head. Only my memory, but I swear on my honor that I am not lying. If necessary, I am willing to confront anyone." Charles nodded slowly. "Thank you, Jenkins. I will look into this." Jenkins bowed and left. Charles sank back into his chair, head in hands. The image of Camilla entering his mother's room repeated endlessly. An argument? About what? And why did his mother decline so rapidly afterward? That night, Charles did not sleep. He lay staring at the ceiling, the pain of losing his mother still raw, now layered with dark suspicion. He wondered, was he tormenting himself over baseless words? Or was this a truth he had missed for 4 whole years? The story was only beginning. And Charles knew that once he opened the door to doubt, closing it again would not be easy. That evening, the atmosphere inside Windsor Castle felt heavy, like the sky before a storm. Charles had spent the entire day wrestling with himself. Jenkins's account echoed relentlessly. He could wait no longer. When Camilla entered their private sitting room, still wearing her usual gentle smile, Charles felt his heart tighten. She sat on the sofa, holding a glass of red wine, but her eyes quickly noticed the strangeness on her husband's face. "Charles, what's wrong?" "You look exhausted," she asked, her voice genuinely concerned. He didn't mince words. Charles sat opposite her, looking directly into her eyes. "Today someone came to see me. Harold Jenkins, a former Balmoral servant. He claims that the night before my mother died, you were the last person to enter her room. And when you left, you looked very angry, as though you had just had a heated argument." Camilla set the glass down. The faint clink of crystal rang in the silence. Her face paled for a moment. Then she quickly regained composure. "What? No, absolutely not. Where did you hear that?" "I never entered her room that night." Her voice rose, a mix of surprise and indignation. "I was in the main hall discussing tomorrow's schedule with my secretary and bodyguard. How could I possibly slip into her room at 10 o'clock? She was already very weak, and I knew the rule. No one disturbs her late, unless it is an emergency." Charles repeated Jenkins's details, the light gray wool coat, the clenched hands, the heavy atmosphere. Camilla shook her head vigorously. "Perhaps he saw someone else, or misremembered. I was not there. Are you going to believe an old servant over your own wife?" She squeezed his hand tighter. "Let me prove it. My team will provide the full schedule immediately." Within hours, Camilla's assistants moved swiftly. They presented a detailed dossier, internal meeting minutes, statements from 3 witnesses, 2 private secretaries, and 1 bodyguard, confirming she was in the main hall area at 10 o'clock. The times matched perfectly. There were even grainy security camera stills showing Camilla's silhouette in a different corridor. Everything fit logically, with no obvious gaps. Charles reviewed the materials. A wave of initial relief washed over him. Perhaps Jenkins was mistaken, he told himself. The matter seemed closed, a regrettable misunderstanding born of an aging memory. But late that night, lying alone in bed, doubt crept back in. He flipped through the documents again. The confirmed schedule had been compiled rather late. Some statements were only recorded after the funeral, when everything had settled. There was a 15-minute window from 21:30 to 21:45, with no detailed record of Camilla's exact location. Enough time for someone to move quickly through the vast Balmoral estate. The next morning at breakfast, Camilla tried to close the distance. She poured coffee for him, her voice soft. "You're still thinking about it, aren't you? Let it go, Charles. We need to focus on the future." He nodded, but inside the seed of doubt had already sprouted. Charles said nothing more, only watched quietly. He began discreetly rechecking old details, contacting former Balmoral bodyguards. Each new answer intrigued him more, like a thrilling novel slowly revealing its secrets. A few days after the tense confrontation with Camilla, Charles tried to push the suspicion aside and concentrate on work. He met world leaders and prepared for his first overseas trips as king. But Jenkins's words haunted him like an unhealed wound. Every time he saw Camilla, he wondered whether he was paranoid or whether something was truly being hidden. Then, one drizzly afternoon at Clarence House, a small parcel arrived with no clear postal markings. No sender, no return address. His private secretary checked it for security, found no explosives or suspicious devices, and handed it to him. Charles opened it alone. Inside was an old, worn, leather-bound notebook, about 100 pages thick. The first page bore careful handwriting, notes taken from the dictation of Queen Elizabeth II, her final days at Balmoral, September 2022. No signature, but the style, clear, slightly slanted, authoritative even in weakness, was instantly recognizable to anyone who had seen her handwritten letters. Attached was a short, unsigned note. In her final days, the Queen was very tired and could hardly hold a pen. She asked me to record certain thoughts and important instructions she dictated. This is the most faithful transcription possible. I am sending it because my conscience will not allow me to conceal it. Charles turned the pages, heart pounding. The early entries recorded routine matters. Then one passage stopped him cold. "I have no intention of granting Camilla any additional special role or privilege in the future arrangements of the royal family. She already has a fitting position beside Charles, and that is sufficient. The monarchy needs stability, not major changes or controversial new titles. I have decided clearly." Charles read it again and again, feeling the blood freeze in his veins. This was not merely an opinion. It was a direct refusal, almost a final directive. He turned further. The last relevant entry, dated September 7th, the night before the Queen's rapid decline. "Tonight there was a meeting that caused me serious distress. Words were harsh and disrespectful. I feel more exhausted than ever, as though the last of my strength has been drained. I only wish for peace in the time I have left." No name was mentioned, but the timing and context matched Jenkins's account perfectly. Charles sank into his chair, hands trembling as he held the notebook. The image of his mother on her deathbed, a servant quietly recording her final whispered words. Emotions surged, grief for his mother mingled with anger and confusion. If this was genuine, what had Camilla hidden from him? Could an argument have hastened the Queen's passing? Or was this an elaborate forgery? Charles immediately called his most trusted advisor, someone who had worked closely with the Queen for decades. Verify the authenticity of this notebook, and find out who could have had access to her in those final days. The advisor took the notebook and promised discretion. But within hours, he returned with preliminary findings. "We cannot confirm it with absolute certainty. This is a handwritten transcription, not the Queen's own hand. But the content, it strongly resembles her style and thinking. It would be difficult for someone to fabricate such specific details." Charles was silent. He knew the notebook was not ironclad proof, yet it aligned too perfectly with Jenkins's story. The timing, the emotional strain, The decision regarding Camilla. All the pieces suddenly fit. He chose not to confront Camilla immediately. Instead, he locked the notebook in his private safe and began digging deeper in secret. Every night, when the palace fell silent, Charles opened it again. Each line felt like a whisper from the past, robbing him of sleep. After the mysterious diary appeared, Charles could no longer sit still. He launched an unofficial, highly discreet investigation known only to a handful of trusted aides. Every evening, when the palace grew quiet, he locked his private office door and spread the documents across the large table. First, he re-examined Camilla's schedule for the night of September 7th. Her team's dossier remained solid. A short meeting in the main hall from 21:45 to 22:30, backed by 3 witnesses. But when compared with the diary and Jenkins's account, a small gap emerged. From 21:30 to 21:45, 15 minutes, there was no precise record of Camilla's location. The main corridor security camera captured only a blurry silhouette, face unclear. One former night shift bodyguard, when privately asked again, admitted, "I recall she left the hall briefly, saying she was going to fetch some documents, then returned quickly." But no one tracked the exact time. Charles noted it carefully. That window was enough for someone to hurry from the main hall to the Queen's private room, if they knew the shortcuts. He drew no firm conclusion, but the detail made him uneasy. It was not proof, only a tiny crack in an otherwise perfectly constructed picture. Next, he focused on the diary itself. Charles consulted 2 handwriting and document analysis experts. One said, if someone was very familiar with the Queen's manner of expression, they could imitate it. But conversely, if genuine, the transcriber must have been extremely close to her in those final hours. Charles tapped the table lightly, voice low. "So what do we have? An unverified notebook, a blank time window, and the account of an old man no one else can corroborate." The investigation gradually stalled. He tried contacting Harold Jenkins again by phone. The elderly man's tired voice answered, "I've told you everything I know. I have no further evidence. If necessary, I'll meet you. But I don't want to be drawn deeper into this." The call ended, leaving Charles feeling powerless. Jenkins had not changed his story, yet offered nothing new. Charles wondered whether someone had approached the old man, quietly urging silence, or whether it was simply the fear of old age. He decided to pause, but not abandon the matter. The diary remained in the safe, Jenkins's words still echoed. Charles felt he was chasing a ghost, almost within reach, yet impossible to grasp. Rumors about the diary began spreading quietly within royal circles like a slow-burning fire. At first, only whispers among long-serving bodyguards and secretaries, but soon they reached influential ears. A few retired Balmoral staff began recalling vague details from that night. No one dared speak openly, but the way they looked at Charles and Camilla changed, filled with curiosity and caution. Camilla reacted first and most decisively. When she learned the rumors were spreading, she did not wait. In a closed meeting with her innermost circle of advisors, she declared firmly, "That notebook is a forgery. Someone is deliberately trying to sabotage us, and we will not let them succeed." Her voice was calm but razor-sharp, showing no hesitation. Within 2 days, her team held an internal briefing, not public, but sufficient to quell the whispers. They represented the entire schedule for that night, now reinforced by 2 additional witnesses, a nurse who had cared for the Queen, and a logistics staff member. Both confirmed Camilla never left the main hall area. Camilla also demanded an independent laboratory examination of the notebook by a reputable private firm. Just as the matter seemed deadlocked, Harold Jenkins, the spark of the whole affair, suddenly changed his stance. When Charles called again for more details, the number had been changed. Charles set the phone down, feeling as though he had been doused with cold water. He immediately suspected Camilla's influence, perhaps through an intermediary. A gentle but weighty warning strong enough to frighten a reclusive elderly man. He had no proof, but his intuition told him so. That evening, in their private bedroom, Charles confronted Camilla directly. The tension was suffocating. He spoke slowly. "Jenkins has suddenly gone silent. I think someone outside intervened. Do you know anything about this?" Camilla looked at him, eyes red with anger and hurt. "Are you accusing me? I did nothing. I don't even know where he lives after retirement." "Charles, you're becoming paranoid. Someone is using you to drive a wedge between us." She stepped forward, trying to embrace him, but Charles stepped back slightly. "If you're innocent, why does everything align so perfectly? The diary, Jenkins's account, the time gap? And now he's suddenly silent." Camilla burst into tears, voice breaking. "Because you want to believe it. You want to find an enemy, but there is no enemy. Only rumors and fabricated documents. I love you, and I never harmed your mother. If you no longer trust me, then what do we have left?" Charles fell silent. He watched her cry, heart aching. He wanted to believe Camilla, to hold her and say it was over. But the seed of doubt had taken deep root. He turned away, voice low. "I need time." The remaining evidence gradually grew hazy. The diary was never independently authenticated. Jenkins's account was now merely an unverifiable, personal memory. Camilla's schedule was bolstered by a stream of witnesses. No clear video, no official documents, no clear motive for anyone. The story began to be regarded as an unprovable tale, a royal secret buried by time and denial. After countless sleepless nights and discreet inquiries, Charles finally faced the harsh reality. There was no evidence strong enough to reach any conclusion about the night the Queen died. The mysterious diary still lay locked in the safe, unauthenticated. Harold Jenkins's account, sincere though it may have been, remained only the personal recollection of an old man. No official records, no second witness, no clear footage. Everything was indirect, ambiguous, and easily refuted. Charles sat alone in the private library at Sandringham on a bitterly cold winter afternoon in early 2026. Firelight danced across his face, deepening the lines etched there. He opened the notebook one last time and reread his mother's final words. "I only wish for peace in the time I have left." He whispered, "Mother, I'm sorry. I tried to find the truth, but perhaps the truth is not meant for me now." He was forced to admit the investigation was over, not because he wanted it to be, but because there was no path forward. Digging deeper risked destroying his own marriage and destabilizing the still fragile image of the new reign after the funeral. Camilla, though outwardly composed, had grown more distant. Brief embraces, fragmented conversations, all carried an unnamed fog. Charles no longer fully trusted her. The doubt did not disappear, it merely retreated into the shadows, waiting. One evening, as they sat at a small private dinner, Camilla broke the silence. Her voice was gentle but firm. "Charles, you no longer trust me, do you? We cannot live forever with the ghost of the past." He looked at her, eyes complex. I've stopped, but I haven't forgotten. If one day the truth comes out, I hope you are innocent. They said nothing more. Dinner ended in silence, and Charles knew their relationship had changed forever. On the surface, they remained the perfect royal couple, smiling for cameras, attending events, supporting each other. But inside, there was a void that could not be filled, a small but deep crack. In the days that followed, no new documents surfaced. Harold Jenkins vanished, taking the secret of that year with him. The diary remained untouched, neither published nor completely debunked. Sometimes, in moments of solitude, Charles thought about it. He wondered, did his mother truly suffer stress from one final meeting? Did Camilla hide a painful truth from him? Or were they all just scattered fragments that the human mind desperately tries to assemble into a complete picture? If you were in Charles's position and heard this accusation, would you believe the former servant's account or Camilla's denial? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy